All right, welcome to General Order 1 podcast, where we are discussing the Paramount Plus, well, I guess the Star Trek show, Strange New Worlds. We are doing a Season 1 wrap-up today. We are doing a rare in-person podcast instead of recording over the internet. It's weird, like, actually seeing real people.
I have to see your faces. Yeah, it's unfortunate.
Yeah, I don't know if I would prefer this format.
We should all just put paper bags over our heads.
I mean, or just you two. I mean, I don't need to do that. But
all right, so we've talked about we've done an episode on all of the individual episodes of the season, but we're going to do a quick roundup of the season as a whole. Maybe some brief discussion on season 2 or ideas for season 2. I came up with a brief list of questions. Did you guys do your homework, or are you going to wing it?
I'm fully prepared.
Okay.
I have like half of the answers. I have some notes, but some of them I'm not sure about. We'll see.
Do you know what the questions are?
I brought them. Yeah, I wrote them. So.
Can you say them? So I want to know if you know what they are.
The first question is the most underrated and underused character. Underused character.
Exactly. You got it. Good job.
Okay. Do you have an answer?
No.
So much for all that preparation. I actually wrote 3 answers for all of the questions because I figure that way if we duplicate, I'll just change my answer on the fly. So you want to go first, Ben?
Sure. Okay. So it's the most underrated.
Most underrated or underused character.
I think I'm going to go with Una, number 1.
Okay.
I mean, yes, we got the whole she's genetically modified thing, but frankly, other than that, like Chekhov's gun waiting to go off, she didn't have a whole lot to do. She wasn't in command. You know, it's not like she was running the away teams and Pike was staying on the ship. She was in charge of the ship a couple times, but every time she was, we were away with Pike somewhere. She just kind of was there. I mean, she had that one episode where her and La'an were going around the ship doing the Enterprise
bingo, yeah, right.
Enterprise scavenger hunt or whatever it was. But yeah, other than that, she just is kind of there. Like, I really expected to see more from her. If you think about a first officer on other shows, they get quite a bit of action. I mean, in some cases, a lot more than the captain does, and she didn't really.
She was really, that's a good point. She was kind of I want to say, vanilla character.
Yeah.
They didn't really flesh out her personality a whole lot other than the fact that she was augmented.
Yeah. She had that one kind of moment, but other than that, she's mostly there for she's there so they don't have to do exposition with Pike doing captain's logs. He has someone to talk to, but
okay.
It's mostly just she's there. She bookends the show. She's kind of there at the beginning and the end for Pike to talk to someone and say what he's thinking, but that's basically all she's there for, and it's unfortunate.
Okay.
Well, I thought she was kind of my least favorite character, actually. And is that what you're saying? You liked her and you wanted to see more of her?
Yeah, I thought they could have done a lot of cool stuff with that character, and they just didn't give her anything to do. So, yeah, I mean, I think she is my least favorite character, too, but it's no fault of the character. It's just, they didn't have her do anything.
Yeah, she's, like I said, she's kind of vanilla. They didn't give her a lot of chance, yeah. Well, I'm wondering how much of that will factor into season 2, because she's essentially, in jail now or whatever.
She's in Starfleet jail, whatever that looks like.
Are they going to go on some rescue mission and break her out? Like, there's no way they're going to leave. She's not going to be in 80% of the episodes. So
I really hope they do more and flesh out that character and give her more to do next season.
Okay, so I could see that. Jason, what about you?
Well, I think we all agree that Hemmer is the best character on the show, and he was killed off untimely, right?
Right.
You can go into that. I mean, that's a given. I guess if I had to come up with like a more interesting answer, I would say Chapel, because I actually just watched the episode 1 again because it had been a while, and like she's introduced saying that she's like specializes in like DNA augmentation and like disguises and stuff, and they use her. Oh,
right, from the pilot when she. Yeah, right.
And then it's never mentioned again.
And never mentioned ever again. I think that's a cool concept to be like the disguise master or something like that, but it's not really borne out later, so that's my answer.
I was thinking about that because I almost put M'Benga. I mean, he got one episode, the Elysian Kingdom with his daughter, but other than that, he's really vanilla.
Yeah.
Or he was really underused.
I thought he had a great arc throughout the whole series. Like, you saw moments of him and his daughter, And then he had a really good payoff.
Okay, I guess, yeah.
I think you're
He
wrong.
had a small piece. Well, anyway, what I was going for was, I think it's interesting. It's almost like Chapel gets more screen time than Mbenga does.
She
right?
definitely does.
She's-
There's no question she's on camera more than him.
She's a more compelling character. Like, she's flirting with Spock, and she's got some skills, and she's easy on the eyes, right? You know, I mean, what is she? She's an assistant medical officer.
No, she's the nurse.
Yeah.
But they don't. Yeah, I mean, that's. I think she'd probably have a different title if they weren't having her play an established character that was known as Nurse Chapel.
Yeah, oh, right, sure.
If it wasn't that, she'd probably be like, you know, deputy medical officer or something like that. Because having her be a nurse doesn't make sense when she's got the level of knowledge and skill that she does. So,
well, I mean, the fact that she is a nurse and they have.
I'm not trying to disparage nurses here, but like,
right.
they like, she's an expert on these alien augmentation stuff. Like, sounds like she went to med school. Is all I'm saying.
It's just interesting that she's essentially, you know, Mbenga's assistant, and she gets more screen time and is a more compelling character than the Doctor.
Yeah.
Like, are there any other I mean, like, Crusher doesn't have an assistant. Like,
She does.
Does she?
Oh God, what's her name?
Clearly made a big impact.
Yeah, I can't remember the actress's name. yeah. Now Wesley's just everyone's assistant.
Yeah, right.
He can do it all.
the
I can't
intern.
remember her name, but she has a nurse.
Okay.
that
I mean, it
works
makes
in
sense
sick
that they
bay.
would. It's just that,
Yeah.
I mean, in the other series, that second in command of sick bay is not a particularly prominent character
No.
usually.
Yeah, Mbenga was really I mean, there's several characters I feel were kind of underutilized where Mbenga had a kind of complete arc, but it ended really quickly. I think
Yeah.
a lot of this is just kind of a casualty of having a 10-episode season.
For sure.
They didn't have enough time for this. There's a lot of characters on this show.
Yeah.
For 10 episodes to have them all have, there's not enough time.
I mean,
frankly.
even if they gave every character one episode, you'd get one episode
Right.
with each character because
Right.
there's at least 10 main characters you'd
so
want to do.
having that short a season with that many characters, I think, did make the narrative suffer a little bit.
Okay. I put Hemmer as my number one. I figured everybody would say that. That's why I had additional number two. Hemmer
I
was
got a different one, so
Okay.
do your Hemmer thing. But
I was gonna. I mean, I think Hemmer is a fantastic character. He being curmudgeonly, like, is such a weird characteristic to have on a show, but like somehow it made him likable. I don't know why. Like, everyone seemed to gravitate towards Hemmer, even though he's just kind of a jerk to everybody. I don't know what it is about that character, but he was great. And then as we were going back through the episode and we were counting how many episodes he actually got, I think we came up with like 4 or 5. Like, I felt to me like he was tragically underused.
he's not in several. I definitely would not put him as the best character because they just didn't do a lot with him until the very end. And when he did show up in the first half of the season, I didn't like him because, he's just a curmudgeon and he didn't do anything.
Yeah.
Like, he's this amazing engineer, we keep being told, but we never see him do anything.
He was definitely he didn't live up to the mantle of chief engineer like some of the
Right,
O'Briens
right.
and the Blana Torreses and the right. So
And I don't blame the character. I think, the actor
Yeah.
did great. The character's interesting. They could have done a lot more with it. They just didn't have time, really. So,
right.
Hemmer had a really amazing end to his arc, but there's basically no beginning or end other than just like,
Right.
he's this grumpy guy. Oh, well, he's actually got some depth to him, and now he's
And
dead.
like just when like they start to flesh it out, like, and he's dead.
Yeah, that's a bummer. I mean, he's the curmudgeon IT guy. I deeply identify with that character.
That's a good point. He totally is. Like, did you turn it off and reboot it before you called me?
Yeah.
Right.
Don't bother me. I'm trying to fix it. Type thing. I as someone who worked in tech support, I identify with him. So it's a bummer he got killed.
Hemmer seems like the obvious one, but my second was I put Ortegas because I think she's a really interesting character. Like, she's got some chops on the bridge. Like, I mean, she has the Ortegas maneuver, I think, that Pike says a couple times.
Yeah.
She's got some skill. Like, they fleshed, as far as like a pilot goes, they fleshed her out a little bit. Like, they gave her just enough, but she's really kind of only there just to like hit the buttons when Pike says, do it.
I feel like she was there mostly just to take the piss on the other characters.
Oh, really?
They kept using her as a vehicle to call out other characters on stuff. Like, she kept kind of needling people about various things they were dealing with and making them confront issues. So she was, kept getting Uhura riled up, and she did the same thing with Spock at one point, and she's just kind of the, hey, you you think you got this under control, but we can all tell you're spiraling here. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, she's like a good pilot, like the kind of skilled pilot that can get out of certain situations. And you had that moment where it's like feeling the ship, and she's driving it manually to get through that one.
And she was excited about it.
It felt a little sexual, yeah. So
she was like, "This, I'm really into this ship." All right, well, how about this? I didn't write this one down, so you may not be. Who's the most overused character? Who's the character?
So let me.
Oh,
go
you got another?
Best,
right,
yeah. So yeah. My I thought the character that was the most underused was Una. But I thought the best character this season was Spock. He had a lot to do. He was interesting. The actor has Spock nailed. He did a great job of being Spock and not being Leonard Nimoy, if that makes sense.
For sure.
And he had some really interesting arcs with his struggle between being a Vulcan and being a human. He's present in every episode. That helps a lot. Other than Pike, I would say he has the most screen time of anybody. I thought they just did a great job with Spock. I wasn't wild about the idea of having Spock on another Star Trek show because we've seen that. Like Pike at least is a character we know about, but we haven't seen a lot of. But we've seen plenty of Spock. Like we've seen Spock in basically every Star Trek property that exists.
Right.
So I just was like, really? Do we really need Spock for this? But he did great, and I really thought he brought a lot to the table. So.
See, that's funny because I was going to say he would be the character I think was the most overused or almost overrated. You're right. He does a great job, and it's no fault of the character or the actor. But yeah, there are a couple episodes where I'm like, oh my gosh, we've seen Spock. Like, we've been doing this. Like, give me more Hemmer. Give me more takes.
Yeah.
Like, why is Spock getting so much screen time? And again, it's nothing against him. There was just a couple times where I'm like, all right, we've been down this road. Like, let's shine the light on some other people. So he would probably be my vote just because he got so much screen time and some of the other characters didn't.
I could see that.
I wasn't sold on him initially, but he grew on me. Like he was a good Spock towards because he had a lot of screen time, and you got to know him and his relationship with T'Pring and the weird culture issues that he's having, and so he grew on me, but he didn't sell me initially. But he was a little. I guess he was a little overexposed. I think.
Right.
I agree with that.
I mean, I guess, that's probably part of the appeal of the show, right? I mean, This is a throwback show, so they got to throw out the fan favorites. You got to bring back the Kirks and the Spocks just to get, eyeballs, so they can put it on the internet and say, get people to tune in. I get it, but I'm hoping that maybe in the next season they give some of the lesser characters, where's our Transporter Kyle episode, right?
Yeah.
Come on,
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen enough Spock. Where's...
I have an interesting answer for the most overused character.
All right.
Kirk.
James
James T. Kirk was the most overused character.
Really?
He was in one.
in one episode, and I think he's the most overused character.
Okay.
I think it might have been interesting to have a cameo appearance, have him show up on the view screen for a scene.
Right.
But having a whole episode featuring him, I think, was a mistake.
Yeah.
And every other character, I feel like, was underused. Again, with 10 episodes, I don't think they had a chance to do everything with those characters that they could have. So the only character I wanted to see less of was James T. Kirk.
There's that one episode where Spock is talking to Scotty in engineering, and they never mention his name. You just kind of, that's like an homage, right?
Yeah.
If they had done something like that with Kirk, like where he calls his brother and you see him for 4 seconds,
perfect.
That would have been cool. But for the same reason that we saw Spock so much, like, dude, okay, we get it. You had your whole own series. Like, I don't need more Kirk.
Right.
I don't need more Spock. Like, give me these other characters.
Let's let these characters breathe. I didn't get enough time with these characters, and you're wasting a bunch of screen time on Kirk. I can go fire up the original series anytime I want. Like, we're good.
Hopefully that's a season 1 itis kind of thing where they got.
I really hope so.
Where they got to get the fan
from
favorites
interviews and stuff. I think Kirk is going to be in it more.
It sounds like he is,
probably.
which I'm not happy about. But I mean, we'll see. I'll watch it. We'll see what happens. But I want to see more Pike. I want to see more Uhura.
Right.
I want to see more Una. Give me more number 1.
Well,
but
there's 3 people that I think are going to be gone. Una is arrested. Maybe they'll come back to her, but it seems like she's
too big of a character for them just to
Arrested.
arrest.
I'm
We'll
guessing
see.
in the first episode they'll work that out.
Or like maybe half of the season could be them hatching a plot to get her out, and then the last half of the season is just their extended mission to do whatever. So.
My guess is that cliffhanger is going to get resolved pretty quick.
Okay.
You don't think they'll have like a new number one for a while? Or?
Maybe.
They'll probably have somebody fill in, maybe.
Yeah,
we'll see.
Well, La'an is gone because she's searching for the girl's family at the end, and then Hemmer's gone. So they're kind of
that's a good
refreshing
point.
some cast members, I think.
Yeah, they are down 3 whole.
So I think we'll maybe see some new people.
Yeah, they've cast 3 new people for the next season. So
Have they? Has it been announced?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
And they've not announced who these people are playing, but they've announced these 3 actors have been hired for season 2. So, do we know has season 2 started shooting yet? I imagine it has.
Didn't we look it up at the end of? It's going to air this year, right?
So they must already be shooting.
I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw an interview with Anson Mount, and he talked about season 2. He said that they kind of go crazy in season 2. I think season 1 was like sort of like setting the tone and then doing sort of these typical Star Trek stories to kind of like speed run through getting to know the characters. And I think hopefully they're going to be doing some more crazy off the wall stuff in season 2. So I'm excited.
Yeah.
I mean, as long as they keep the tone. I mean, I really like. I think we all do. I really like this season, and as long as they keep the, the utopian aspect instead of the dystopian that was Star Trek Discovery. There's enough. There's enough doom and gloom out there in the real world that I don't need to tune into Star Trek to see, my favorite characters getting kicked around. So we'll see.
We want the classic feel-good Star Trek here.
Yeah, right? I mean, that's why I sit down and watch, to little escapism, not doom and gloom, so.
Yeah, everything that takes place in the future is always kind of dystopian or dark or apocalyptic, and like Star Trek is like the one utopian vision of the future, and that's kind of what makes it special, I think.
Yeah. I mean, that's why I've always liked it, is because, the conflicts aren't incredibly dire, right? There's moral conflicts less than there is like, gigantic civil wars or battles or doom and gloom all the time.
And frankly, it's just the easiest writing in the world to take that and go like, well, let's just make it gritty.
Yeah, right.
So,
which is what they did with Discovery, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that was the whole stick.
Yeah, and DS9 did that to a point, but I feel like they did a pretty good job of walking that tightrope of, okay, not everything in the future is rosy and great, but Starfleet still aspires to that, and we're going to attempt to do that. Like, the really big drama points in that show were when... in particular when Cisco would kind of break the rules or do something that was less than honorable or that was a little bit ruthless, but it was always made out that this was a really big deal that he's done this, and he's racked by guilt from a lot of the actions he took, and it's not something he just does lightly and then, we move on. He's really kind of traded away part of his soul to win this war doing this stuff. So they didn't make it easy to just go, oh, well, the world sucks and everything's grim and that's how we're going to do it now.
Well, like one of the main set pieces is Quark's bar, right? And it's just full of drinking and gambling. I mean, it's essentially a brothel. I mean, that would be the seedy side of Star Trek, but even
it's
that...
It's the cleanest, most sterile thing ever for what it's supposed to be.
So even considering what it is still, like you said, it's I don't want to say above board, but it's not dark and gritty. And,
They let a little bit of grime...
Just enough.
There's like a black market thing going on.
Yeah, he's a smuggler. He's right.
They let a little bit of like reality seep into the Starfleet utopia, but they kept the core basically intact. So
I know it's a little bit cliche, but what was your favorite episode?
I'm going to forget the title. The one about where Grace, I can't remember I'll have to look it up. The one with the planet where they were sacrificing the child.
The golden child.
Yeah.
Oh, something about suffering.
Yeah, take us where suffering cannot reach or something like that. Yeah, for sure. I think we talked about that, while it was going on, or even towards the later episode. I think you had said that already.
And it's not even close for me. That being the best episode, yeah. Lift us where suffering cannot reach. That is my favorite episode, no question. There's nothing else even in the running.
Wow. I mean, you're not wrong. I'm just surprised that it's cut and dry.
It's the best. That I went on about this forever. When
we don't have to
talked about
rehash
that
the whole
episode, but
thing,
yeah,
right?
I think that Star Trek's at its best
Yep.
when it's just a morality play,
Right.
And that was a really good one. There's no easy answers there. We're not, are they doing the right thing? Are they not? Is it okay to sacrifice this child to save an entire planet? Like, there's no right or wrong answer. I mean, Pike clearly feels that he knows what the answer is, but is he right? I don't know.
Right.
That was a great episode of television. Not just Star Trek. Like, that was a fantastic episode of television. That's science fiction at its best. It makes us think, and there's multiple ways to think about it. There's no right or wrong answer. It's great. Everything else was, it's action-y. There's stuff going on. There were several other episodes that were really good, but that's my favorite, no question.
What about you, Jason?
By far, mine is Spock Amok, which is the body switch episode with him and T'Pring. I thought that was great. It's like a shore leave episode, kind of chill, like comedic, no big action craziness. I mean, it didn't have like you say, I do love when there's like a weird moral question or philosophical discussion happening. I don't know if there was any episodes that really did that for me. I think the the Sufferer one was good, but it felt a little contrived. Like, okay, we can just like torture this one little boy, and then we'll have like a utopian society, and like that's like
no, you're right. Too clean. They're boiling some really tricky questions down into one question, and it is, it's a thought exercise, and it's not necessarily a realistic scenario for sure.
But that's like that's a good classic like hard sci-fi concept.
Spock Amok's probably my number 2.
Yeah,
I would say. I really liked that one a lot.
I was worried when it came up and we had to watch it, and I was like, "Oh, this is the body switch episode," because like
on paper it doesn't work.
Yeah, it's kind of an overused Hollywood trope. Like, oh, we're gonna, like Freaky Friday. I mean, how many times has that been done?
Yeah, a million times.
But
and it's usually not very good.
They did do that one pretty well.
And the plot with the aliens that were like dealt with empathy. The theme was empathy, and that's how you kind of win them over, is like really trying to understand the other person's point of view.
Thinking how the other person thinks. And everything tied in so beautifully with that episode, because Spock and T'Pring, who don't really understand one another, and then they are literally walking in each other's shoes and come to realize, okay, I've got my own things I'm dealing with, but this person has all this whole other crisis kind of happening that I didn't even know was going on. And
it's so funny. It's so funny to do a body switch episode with two personalities that have like no different. They're like both robotic,
right?
Deadpan like tones. You can't really tell by mannerisms, but you could tell like their decisions and the way they're thinking and stuff. So
it was really good writing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that could have been so cliche, and it could have gone so poorly, like, oh, okay, this has been done a million times, but somehow they made it work, so that's good.
Yeah.
All right, well, I've got a hot take here. I'm going to say I think my favorite episode was the Elysian Kingdom episode, which is the lowest rated episode out there.
Okay.
That was the
ghosts?
No, that's the one with Mbenga and the storybook and everybody's they're going through.
Yeah.
I actually like that one quite a bit.
Yeah.
That might be my third favorite of the season, actually. So, I mean, I think we're all fairly in agreement on which the best episodes were.
When that one was coming up and I was looking at all the ratings, it's clearly the lowest rated of all the episodes. Oh. But I really like that episode just because that's a super character-driven episode.
It is.
And all of the characters were not themselves. Like, Pike was just over-the-top crazy.
They're getting to chew the scenery.
Yeah.
It's cheesy. Oh, okay, fine. It's still fun.
That's right. That's why I liked it. And because they got to, I wanted to see more of all of these characters, and that was a great episode to see more of the characters go even beyond what they were given. It was like, what would this character do if you ratcheted their personality up to 11?
It was really the actors that got to play and like do different
Well, and they're all playing very against type. They're playing kind of the opposite of what their regular character is, so they're getting to have some fun with it. Yeah, it was great.
Is that the best science fiction episode? No, absolutely not. But I think just as far as the characters go and just having fun with the universe and, the actors playing different characters inside of, it's a play inside of a play kind of thing. I just thought it was really fun. I mean, it didn't advance the story a whole lot. I mean, I guess it did, give Mbenga's daughter a little bit of closure, which I think we already talked about. I kind of wish they hadn't done that.
That's the only hit I have against it, is that it wrapped up that storyline way too neatly and quickly.
Yeah.
I actually cried during that part because I had like a fever. I had like 103 fever at the time, and I was kind of like, it was a weird, trippy episode, and I have a daughter, and so like, at the end, I'm man enough to admit that I was weirdly crying there. It was weird though.
Do you get emotional when you're sick?
I don't know if I do.
Just that time?
Typically.
The only reason I ask is because I know exactly what you're talking about. I was watching Dune, like the old miniseries on TV, a long time ago when I was sick. And essentially, Paul Atreides, his dad gets killed and he has to take over, and I have sons, and I was like, totally crying. I was like, I was sitting there, even while I was watching it, I was like, what am I doing? Like, this doesn't make any sense. And then I realized, I'm sick, I'm probably worn down, this hits a little too close to home. Like, in any normal day, it would never happen. I just remember thinking, oh, this is really good writing. And then I went, oh, okay, maybe it's just me, not the story. But all right.
I've only cried one day in my life, and that was the day Johnny Cash died. Other than that, I've never cried once.
Okay, good for you.
What a Chad.
The only other thing I would say, and again, I wrote down multiple answers for all these. I really liked the pilot because I thought it was a really interesting take on, First Contact, and it's where we get the term General Order 1 because they don't have.
They don't have the Prime Directive.
They don't have the Prime Directive yet. So I thought that was an interesting take on just how to interact with a new civilization, and they kind of flipped it on its head because he had to interact with them and he didn't have a choice. So
and you got to see an inspiring speech right out the gate with Pike.
And that's the first episode. I mean, it's a great introduction. You're like, whoa, right? This character has got some gravitas to it. So anyway.
the only hit I have on that episode was that it starts with Pike in, basically having a crisis of confidence and PTSD and having flashbacks and just not in a good place. And he's 100% Pike ready to take on the galaxy really fast.
He bounces back really quick.
I felt like they either needed to have that transition take longer or not have him be as down in the depths as he was to start with.
I don't know. I loved how I rewatched that recently, and I really loved what they're trying to what Spock gives him a pep talk and tells him to just play captain, and he knows he has to fill that role, and so he's kind of discovering that. No matter how he feels inside, he needs to be that for everyone else. And so it's more of fake it till you make it, I think, less than he's fully confident and fully over that trauma. It's more...
I just wanted to see more signs that he was faking it still for a while.
Oh, right.
Well, you see, in later episodes, you see him with those visions, and you see him, kind of... having issues.
He went from being on his ranch in Montana and never wanting to leave the house or his pajamas to giving an inspiring speech to that new race in 3 days or whatever. It was. I'm with you. I think that's a really good point, though. You're talking about faking it till you make it. I've only been a leader a couple times in my life, but it seems especially if you're a Starfleet captain, I got to imagine 80% of your job is just faking it. And
totally,
you're
there to inspire confidence, whether you feel it or not.
Right?
Well, Memento Mori, when he tells them to go deeper and to trap the
Gorn.
Gorn, and he plays it cool. He knew that they were going to survive. The other ship implodes, but you can tell he had no idea what he was doing. He's just trying to play it cool there. I don't know.
We're watching Voyager right now, and that's so. That's that's the textbook definition of faking it till you make it. Right? Janeway's stuck in the middle of the Delta Quadrant. She's got zero guarantee that she's ever going to make it home or survive. And there's a lot of episodes where she has a crisis of oh my gosh, how am I going to get through this? How am I going to, more importantly, how am I going to convince my people that they need to get off their butts and do their job or we're all dead? So that's when it sort of sunk or it hit home to me oh my God, a good portion of your job as captain is just being cheerleaders, getting the other people inspired to do their jobs.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, the captain's job, you know, you get on the view screen, you do a little diplomacy, but I mean, all the hard work is done in engineering and piloting and weapons, right? So,
and in the pilot, it was a really cool like scenery, like this rural mountain landscape. And he's like on horseback riding through the snow,
right?
And you have the ship coming in. That was pretty epic. Or it kind of reminded me of like Metal Gear Solid. Of he's like retired and he's living in Alaska, and you know, the ops come in and like say, you got to go on one more mission type of thing.
We just need you one more time
out of retirement. You know, he wasn't in retirement, but
yeah.
During that episode where the pirates stormed the Enterprise, he was going and hiding in the cardboard box.
Yes,
Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. Next question. What's the best unresolved plot line, or what are you looking forward to learning more about in season 2? Who wants to go first?
I would say that Pike's, you know, where Pike's future is taking him. I hope they do some more with that and play around with that a bit. It's one thing just to know, hey, he's gonna, you know, in 10 years he's gonna save these folks, and including Spock, and he's gonna end up in this biobed. But I hope they play around with some of the ramifications of what knowing your future is going to do to you. For example, I really hope that we see at some point that he grows overconfident because, okay, well, the bad news is I'm going to die in 10 years, but the good news is I know that I cannot die in the next 10 years. I can do anything.
Right.
I can take any risk. I can send the Enterprise up against this massive battlecruiser because I know I'm not going to die. Well, you're not going to die, but maybe 100 members of your crew do because you made a bad decision because you're overconfident. So
I put down that exact same thing. I put Pike's impending death. I think is an interesting unresolved plot point, but it's also one that I care about very little. Like the fact that he's going to die in 10 years, like, okay,
the show's going to be over by then.
I don't really care. I want to see more Pike going on adventures. I don't want every episode to be like him checking his calendar and going, okay, I got 700 more days. I better make it worth it. Like, no, I want to, like you said, I want to see them work that into the plot a little bit, but not make it an overarching, you know, impending sense of doom and everything revolves around it.
Yeah. I wish I could answer that question with M'Benga's daughter and what's going to happen with her. I feel like they should have kept that going.
I'm hoping they can somehow work her back in. Like,
I mean, they might be able to, as she can be like kind of a benevolent Q kind of thing or something. But I mean, she's one with the Nebula now. It
like you said, it was a great plot element, a theme, and then it just didn't go anywhere. So I'm hoping maybe they can make something happen with it.
I'm glad they resolved it. I was like, I thought that was so weirdly cruel, and I mean, I understand his decision to like keep his daughter in the transport buffer and like only take her out for a little bit to read with her, but that was, I mean, that's pretty dark for me, and it's like you can't keep doing that. You know, that has to go somewhere quickly, I thought, but
I guess that's a good point. Like if they did just keep her in the pattern buffer for 3 years, at some point it almost just becomes, I don't want to say torture, but it's just, it's just kind of brutal. Like it's brought up all the time. Like, okay, all right.
I had a different answer for that one. I thought I want to see more of Spock's brother, Sybok.
I'm put excited. That too. All right.
You did? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
You want to see people sharing their pain?
Yes, I'm excited to see because I think they've done a good job of like taking cheesy old, especially like Pike himself, cheesy old characters from the original series and then like turning them into good characters. So I'm very curious to see like an emotional Spock or like a foil to Spock's like strife for logic and stuff like that. So
that was exactly what I was going to say too, because he does not have a good pedigree for being a good character in that universe, but clearly they've fleshed out a lot of other characters in this. I mean, they've done, amazing things with Pike. So I'm interested to see what they do with him, just because I think they could do a good job. Well, I mean, you really can't do worse than what he can only go up, right?
Yeah.
So we'll see. I'm hoping that is.
I'm wondering if they're just going to ignore him from here on out and just never. I mean, it was a little Easter egg for the people who managed to make it through Star Trek V, and that's it. Because I mean, what are they going to do? Like, I mean, I guess you don't have to worry too much about upsetting people by messing with Star Trek V as canon,
Right.
but they're not. Sybok's supposed to have not had anything to do with Spock for a long time when Star Trek V happens. So
It seems like that one episode ended with the Sybok reveal, and it, and then the impending music played. So it seemed like they wanted
they're setting it up.
Yeah,
Right. In any other show, I'd be like, okay, he's going to be the big bad next season or something.
Yeah,
but
right.
we'll see. I don't know.
Okay, I'm interested to see what they do with that character because there's a lot of places you could go. So.
Yeah.
Well, you guys took both of my answers, so I'll go with my third. I'm interested to see more about the Gorn, just because we don't know anything really about them. If you look at where they came from in the original series, when it was a really cheesy guy in a rubber suit, and clearly they've reinvented that whole race, that whole character, and fleshed it out more and made it rather imposing. I'm interested to see if they're able to take that to new levels. Are they going to be the new Borg? Are we going to have to develop new technology to deal with them? Does La'an have a mental breakdown every time that a Gorn ship shows up on the screen?
Well, someone just needs to come up with the double-fisted punch, and they're done. They're good.
Well,
that's it.
That's not for 10 years in the
Yeah,
future
10
until
years from
Kirk
now, they'll
starts
get
doing that.
the two-fisted punch technology, and we'll be ready to go.
So that's what so that would be my answer, would be the Gorn. So, or what I saw floating around Reddit was shortly after Strange New Worlds ended, or season 1 ended, was several people were talking about how they considered this the best season 1 of any Star Trek show. So I'm curious, what did we say? This is the 11th Star... of all the Star Trek... season 1, any television show, in Hollywood, usually has a pedigree of not being the strongest season because you're fleshing out the characters, you're fleshing out the story, you're getting your writers up to speed. Next Generation had a notoriously... I don't know what the word is. Yeah, weak.
It's,
awkward.
Forget weak. It's just bad. When I rewatched it, I was like, I might just skip they're bad.
It's very much
the Q stuff was kind of interesting.
Encounter at Farpoint's one of my favorite episodes of all time.
The pilot is great.
Yeah.
Other than that, it's frankly, most of it's just garbage. It's terrible.
And that's that's pretty common because you got actors and writers and everybody trying to figure out how this is going to go. So, what do you think? As far as, do you guys think this was a pretty strong first season? You think it's too far to go to say that this is the best first season of all time of whatever the 11 Star Trek shows that have been out now?
I don't know if it. I'm not super interested in this question. I really want to see where it goes. Star Trek. I don't really judge them by their first season typically. I remember Voyager wasn't a bad first season. I really liked.
As far as Voyager goes, yeah, season 1 was okay.
Yeah,
I'm not a
decent.
big Voyager fan, but there was interesting stuff in Voyager season 1. They had the whole, can the Starfleet and Maquis crews come together thing, which really got left by the wayside pretty quickly after that. But I think this is definitely up there. It's very good. I think DS9's first season is probably better for me overall.
So.
There's a lot of good episodes in the first season, even though it wasn't, they were, like you said, Jason, they're figuring out who the characters are in some cases. Some characters ended up being quite a bit different than they were in season 1 as time went on. But
I was reading, just to interrupt super quick, I saw a behind the scenes thing on Deep Space Nine, and the second floor of the promenade did not exist in season 1 because they didn't have the budget.
Yeah.
And you'd never think about it, looking back, but so once they got picked up for season 2, they had some more budget money. We're going to expand these sets. We're going to add, and you're like, you just take for granted that space station is huge and that there's all these people on it, but they didn't really have that. And I was like,
yeah, the show changes quite a bit as it goes. They don't have the Defiant for starters. They've got the runabouts, but they're pretty limited. So, stuff takes place on the station pretty much exclusively in the first season in particular, because again, they didn't have a lot of money couldn't go shoot on location. They didn't have money for other sets. It's all pretty much set on in this bottle. But they did some really interesting episodes with some really good again, morality play type stories.
There's hard-hitting political... It starts out with Sisko's wife essentially getting killed because of Picard's actions. That's a major deal, yeah. So, I guess...
The second episode of the series is, this guy comes through the wormhole and he ends up being a refugee that's, he's like a prisoner that's escaped from this other planet, and they take a liking to him, and then, but the prime directive is they're not supposed to interfere. This, like, the society that he's from comes looking for him, like, hey, this guy's in jail, like, we're taking him. And then do they give him asylum? It's this whole... Anyway, DS9 has a really solid first season, so I wouldn't say this one's the best, but it was really good. I mean, for a season one, it's dang good. Yeah,
I think that was sort of the point that I was trying to get at was, I mean, if you look at these episodes, as a whole or on average, I don't think there's one episode that really like stands out as like a stinker. Like, this was just a waste of my time. If I had to watch this again, I would skip this, which I think is probably uncharacteristic for a first season. Like, statistically speaking, there should be one or two where you're like,
if they did 22, I bet they would have had
probably
a few stinkers in there. But for they put together 10 solid episodes for sure.
I get the sense that they tried really hard to appeal to like Star Trek fans in this one. They tried really hard to give fan service. They know people like Pike. They know they got to hit these marks on certain types of episodes. I appreciate that. I think they really. I mean, this is the third of the modern era Star Trek shows that they're trying to make another hit. Or they're trying to have one that like gets beyond the kind of the crap that has been put out by them so far, And so
this is kind of a reboot after. I mean, Discovery was popular, but there were a lot of people. I mean, I think the two of us have talked about this. That it wasn't for me because it flipped too many of the established themes on its head. So this I would say is kind of a reboot of that to get back to the roots of a more
if Discovery
utopian.
had been an original property.
Sure.
They didn't have the Star Trek name on it. It's
Right.
just call it Discovery, and it's about, I don't know, just make it. You could almost do like the Orville did, where you're basically doing
Right.
Star Trek, but you're not using the Star Trek
different
IP.
name. Right.
If they had done that with Discovery, I probably would have liked it more because I wouldn't have gone in looking
Sure.
for Star Trek.
Right, because I tuned in. You tune in, you expect certain things. It's like watching a Star Wars movie. Like, I want to see Jedi, I want to see lightsabers, I want to see spaceships. If you tune into a Star Wars movie, and you only get one out of the three, you're going to feel cheated, and that's kind of how I felt with Discovery. So
I think they went the full other direction with this series. Picard is a whole other thing, but so they're really trying to get a hit among Star Trek fans, and I think
for sure.
And they've established a really great crew. They've established their behaviors in all of these typical Star Trek situations, and I'm really excited for the next season. And like now that they know they have a good hit, I think that they can take some chances and do some crazier things and like kind of be more creative. I think hopefully so.
Yeah, I mean, for some purposes, you could almost kind of. This was sort of a test, right? Is can we? Because again, Star Trek was essentially off the air for, what did we say, 10 years, 12 years, whatever.
It was a while.
And they came back with Discovery. It was entirely possible that Discovery could have tanked the franchise. Like, fans have tuned out; they're no longer interested in this. It's been too long.
Yeah.
But then they decided to, I want to say, try again, and clearly, I think,
Enterprise went off the air in 2006 or something like that.
Something, yeah. I mean, it was a long time between the two. So, I mean, if if they're testing the audience with this, and I think the reception was pretty good. Yeah, hopefully, like you said, they've got a little more freedom to play with some of those story elements and some of those characters as we move forward. So
it's like back to the standard Star Trek format. You have a captain, you have a crew. They're exploring. I mean, Discovery wasn't that. Picard definitely wasn't that. So, it's it's a little basic as far as like. Just kind of rehashing, it seems a little bit for me. So it's not my favorite. If I was going to like rate first seasons, I don't think I would put it higher than maybe other shows, because I feel like it's just trying to go back to basics. So we'll see where it goes.
I feel like if you're doing, because I mean, again, this Strange New Worlds is the 11th Star Trek. I mean, there's a blueprint, right?
Yeah.
People don't tune into the 11th iteration of something looking for something new, right? If I wanted a new,
I want something new, but I want, I want a new coat of paint on the old chassis.
Right, like here's the foundation. If you want to spin, you know,
Right.
some of the elements, that's
Right.
fine. But you can't rip out.
Yeah, you know, DS9 was okay. We're going to take Star Trek,
Yes.
but we're going to put a little grime on it.
We're gonna take it out of
and we're
space,
going to do more.
essentially.
Yeah, we're
'Cause
going to do
they're not-
more serialization
Right.
with it. And Voyager was we're going to take Star Trek, but we're going to, you know, take away the trappings of the Federation and put them in, you know, put them out by themselves.
They're
And
an
we're gonna-
underdog instead
Yeah.
of right.
So you know, I don't mind if they tweak it a little bit, but yeah, the underpinnings need to be,
Okay.
you know, what they are.
All right. So, I mean, that's the only real questions I had. Are we? I think we were half discussing. Are we really going to watch Star Trek V and figure out where Cybok?
Oh my God!
I think it would be fun to do just because if they do bring him back in season 2, then he'll be fresh in our minds and we can. I would be down for watching it and then just you know.
I mean, after I
tearing it
watch Star
apart.
Trek 5, are you going to take my pain
Sure.
so that I
So
don't
we-
have to live with it?
So we can all get together and we can drink every time something ridiculous happens.
Every time Cybok says, "Show me your pain,"
Yeah.
you drink.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
All right. Well, we'll discuss that offline, but I think it would be interesting to do just because I haven't seen that movie in
Yeah.
25 years, maybe.
yeah. It's been a long time since I've seen it.
It's actually kind of short. I just ripped the DVD and it's only 93 minutes.
I
or
watched it
something.
when it came out on DVD.
Yeah.
I think you and I actually watched it together
Probably.
because I think it was when we were living together way back when
Yeah.
it came out on DVD.
Right.
And then we're like, "Oh my God, I forgot
Yeah.
how bad this thing was."
I mean, at some point, we could, Mystery Science Theater 3000 it
Yeah.
or something, just because it has such a. I honestly remember almost nothing of that movie, so I think would be curious to go back and maybe do that. So that may be our next episode. Well, we got plenty of time until season 2 comes out of this. So
Yeah, have they? I don't think they've
I
announced.
thought
a
we looked it
release
up
date.
last time and they said August or something. I mean,
Sometime
it's
in the
not
fall.
anytime soon.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got several months, if nothing else, so we'll have to figure out something to fill the time.
I'll tell you one thing for season 2. I hope they do more with Una. Hopefully, this whole arc of her being imprisoned will be interesting. But the biggest thing I'm really hoping for, and I'm kind of, this is kind of half joke, half not. I mean, I'm mostly serious about this. I really hope we see more new worlds, strange or otherwise.
Oh, interesting. You mean actually going out
Go
and
out and explore
yeah.
some new worlds, man. Like, we haven't seen much of that. We had basically the one episode where they did that with we had the First Contact episode in the pilot,
Right.
and then we have the let suffering, whatever.
Right.
That's about it. Those are the
Everything
two.
else is them like doing supplies to a
Yeah, they're going to a
mining
star
colony, or
base,
they're
or-
doing. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, I want to see them out exploring.
I mean, it's in the dang litany, right? It's at the beginning of every episode.
It's right there in the name.
Go explore some new worlds and find
Yeah.
some new civilizations. Dang it!
That's what I'm hoping for.
Okay, all right, I'll buy that. Jason?
I'm not finding a release date, by the way. It's just 2023
Yeah.
as
Okay.
of right now. But what was the question? Sorry.
What are you
Just-
hoping for in season 2?
What am I looking forward to? More of Pike's pretty face and
Yeah.
his charm and his.
Well, I mean, that's really the only
sexiness,
reason we're all
and,
watching,
I mean,
right? I
he's-
mean, that's everything
For
else
sure.
is frosting on the cake, but that's
That's a good-looking man.
hey,
I like how that's the theme we take away from this. I mean,
Yeah.
say what you will, he is extremely charismatic, and he's had some really good, monologues or speeches.
Yeah.
He's a great actor, and B, I think he's been handed some really good speeches that he gets to, belt out, and yeah, I'm impressed.
And he can cook you a meal and do the dishes.
That's true. He's really, yeah. So
He's the total package.
I would definitely like to see. I'd like to see more Pike, maybe less Spock, maybe a little less Uhura. Because I mean, again, we've seen those characters before. Like, let's see what. Yeah, let's put.
Actually, I would like to see more Uhura come into her own and
Yeah,
I think that's what we're kind of going to see is her becoming an
They
established
pretty well
person.
gave us that at the end of that last episode where we have the shot
Yeah.
of her on the bridge, in the communications seat, that she's decided to stick with Starfleet, and she's kind of found her niche after doing her rotation with every department, and she knows where she's going to go. So
do you think we get? Do we get a Chekhov or a Scotty or a Sulu to come in You know, do they like slowly fill in the original crew over the course of a couple seasons?
God, I hope not. But
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, they've already, dropped that little Scotty tease on us, so I wonder if they'll do that.
I'm guessing. I wonder if they're not intending for Scotty to come on as the engineer, because I mean, I think that's.
Oh, right, because Heather's dead. Yeah, obviously.
And
right.
and Scotty was supposed to have been on the Enterprise for a while, so I wouldn't be surprised if they did that.
Yeah,
and I don't care what the canon is. Just do what makes sense.
Right.
Write it good.
Right.
Whatever you need to do. So, if the canon is that Scotty started on the Enterprise on Stardate, whatever, I don't care. I don't hold them to that. Yeah, I mean, if they end up bringing on some of the original series characters, that's fine. I'd rather they not, but they showed that they can do a good job of it with Spock, so I'm not against it.
I just hope it doesn't become, like they just build the entire crew and then it just becomes formulaic and you're like...
Just backdoor into the original series.
Yeah, right. I mean, again, there's so much more out there.
Yeah.
Like, let's explore some new worlds instead of like these existing characters that we've already established.
Yeah. The one
see.
I definitely hope they don't do more with is Kirk, but it feels like that's where they're headed.
I think, I mean, he's such a established property. He puts butts in seats. I'm sure they're going to do it, but yeah, I'm with you. I don't need a whole lot more of that. All right, any other closing words? Season 2 is coming out sometime this year, and we'll probably be back with a Star Trek 5 episode sometime before season 2 hits. And
I'll just say, for my closing thoughts on this season, I'm just excited that Star Trek as I know it is back. I think they set out to capture fans like us, and I feel like they succeeded.
I mean, I think it resonated with a lot of fans. I mean, it was pretty well received on the internet, so I mean, they're doing something right.
Yep. I'm excited for more.
All right. That's it. General Order 1 out.
Goop.